Hey everybody, welcome to the show. It's a little bit early, it's 6:57, but that's just because there's just going to be a lot of stuff to talk about for a while now. Now tonight we're going to have two guests that come in. We're going to have a follow-up, a much anticipated follow-up with Jeff Harmon. Last time we spoke to him at the end of the summer, we were talking just, post-assassination attempt stuff and, astro chart timelines for all three most prominent political figures that we had around there. The then early retired Joe Biden, which there's a lot of theories out there about just how early retired he's actually going to be, and whether or not they're going to try to break the glass ceiling in the most embarrassing of ways by getting him to leave in the last couple of months, or ushering off into the afterlife. I don't know. You just don't know. They've already tried that once or twice. And then there was Harris, who's really just inconsequential, more inconsequential than her so-called boss. And then the big one was what was going to happen with Donald Trump, especially going into 2025. And was he going to be fulfilling some destiny or another as Citizen Trump or as President Trump? And that is the cliffhanger. One that even Jeff Harmon was like, that is a great question. And I can't tell you right now, but I want to do a lot of research. And I want to watch what happens. Tonight, we'll do that in the first half. I have like 2 or 3 main questions for him. Won't go too long, because in the second half, around 8:20, we're going to bring Jim Lee on. From the standpoint of how there is now an open policies for the people, a direct line to Team Trump that RFK Jr. had opened up, where Americans can go and propose certain policies that they would think would be beneficial for people to vote on, certain people from the private sector that could be brought in to do some kind of a service for a government in need of some sense and some efficiency. And I think Jim Lee is one of quite a few interesting people who have been nominated for something like this. We'll see what that's all about. And of course, that's interesting. But there's other things going on right now that are so big, and it's going to continue to be gigantic. And that is the battle over appointments. The battle over appointments is going to be so big, and it's so crazy what's happening right now. I don't know if this is true. Let me see something. Are we really getting... Hold on. I keep hearing more and more people, they're at least getting excited for the idea that someone like Kash Patel could be in at FBI, if that's the case. Of course, the big one today was Matt Gaetz nominated to become the Attorney General. Now, this is huge stuff. Why? Because last night when we were discussing, we were in here with Jay, and we had Rich on the phone, and we were talking about this stuff. What was coming up was Senate leadership, the Senate leadership thing. Well, today we got a swift answer to the questions from last night between Senator Thune and then John Cornyn, and Rick Scott. Only one of them a real supporter of Trump's overall vision, okay, which would be very important going forward, especially when it comes to confirmations and everything else. Here's what we got over here today. Rhinos keep Senate as Thune beats Rick Scott to replace McConnell. It's just what it is. President Trump's mandate just got a little bit more complicated as longtime Never Trumper John Thune of South Dakota was just elected Senate Majority Leader, which, listen, I know that there's all types of rules for the House and the Senate, procedural rules, especially in the Senate. I understand that on top of that, there are just party functions, private party functions, and all that stuff. But the idea, whether this is this is legal and all that stuff or not, the idea of convening to select majority leadership in the absence of those who actually make you the majority, meaning the newly elected senators who have not arrived and won't be confirmed and sworn in until just after the new year. The ethics of this, Mitch McConnell and that turkey gobbler of a neck needs to be slapped real hard as a farewell present. That's what he should get. Shouldn't get a Rolex. Should get a slap across the turkey gobbler. That's what he should be getting. Now, the thing about this is, obviously, Thune is not somebody that you can expect to be trustworthy, but this also torpedoes that theory that Marco Rubio was given the Secretary of State nomination in order to whip votes for Rick Scott. A little quid pro quo, help me out over here. You know, you're a veteran of the Senate. Make sure that our guy gets through. Now Marco Rubio just looks like a bad pick for Secretary of State, you know. But and Trump better smash Rubio's face into the shit. Then again, he didn't have to do that. He didn't have to pick him. I don't know what the hell games are being played behind the scenes, but there is a lot of good stuff happening. And I just can't wait to see the fighting. I can't wait to see the fighting. Now, here's what's going on with this Senate leadership thing. Obviously, Axios says that Thune's win is a victory for the post-Trump establishment. Okay? Again, that's what we were talking about last night. How do you make what has been gained here? Because Senator Thune is a part of the overall reason why people came out and voted for Trump, not for him. He's the reason. He's part of what we hate. The Democrats will never understand, especially them, because they're in a completely different universe. They'll never understand why anybody who doesn't identify as a Democrat is a lot more individualist and a lot more liberty-minded. Why we hate Republicans more than anyone. Because how many times have people given these undeserving scumbags unprecedented opportunity? This being it right here, unprecedented opportunity. And it's not because people with the demeanor of Senator Thune are inspiring everybody to go out there. They're not leaders. They are fucking footnotes. They are skid marks on the underpants of history. And that's where we are. So they'll never understand. They really will never understand. But here's something that you gotta keep in mind. Now, remember the confirmation process. It's a majority vote in the Senate. We're going to be coming in with a 53-47 split in the Senate, leaning toward Republicans, with the tiebreaker being J.D. Vance. So it's essentially, 54. They have 53. You have 54-47. But still, Susan Collins. The news is saying Susan Collins is saying she's not on board with Gates as AG. I was shocked at the nomination. This is why the Senate's advise and consent process is so important. I'm sure that there will be many, many questions raised at Mr. Gates' hearing. That's Susan Collins from Maine with the cock nose. Senator Chuck Grassley, upon hearing the news that Matt Gaetz would be Trump's attorney general, was exasperated in reaction and just stood there stone-faced for 30 seconds. I'm sure that has nothing to do with the fact that he's 98,000 years old. Zero Hedge reports that Big Bird from Alaska, Lisa Murkowski, says that Gates is not a serious candidate. So there's three right there. 53-47, it's 50-50. This is not even counting Mitt Romney. Okay? Not even counting Mitt Romney. So here's the thing. Now the issue is recess appointment. There's no other way that I see Matt Gaetz getting in here unless it's through recess appointment. Now, he's going to have to be put in that way because there are just too many GO pieces of shit in the Senate. And that's what we're looking at. Now, the hope is that there can be a recess appointment made and get Matt Gaetz in there, and then he would effectively have until the end of 2026 before he faces a true confirmation vote from the Senate. Because after somebody goes into a recess appointment, they get to stay in there until the end of the next congressional session. So it would be the end of 2026 before the Senate would eventually say, sorry, we're not confirming you. I guess the whole point is 2 years should be enough time to break a lot of toys and to cause a lot of trouble for people who deserve trouble. And I just don't know, because then we start getting into the idea of pro forma. these pro forma sessions in Congress, which I was talking to the Zells about this before. I was remembering it in the past because these pro forma sessions, they are sessions you can only make recess appointments in a time when, Congress is in recess. And anybody, I was wondering, is it just Leader Thune who can call these pro forma sessions, which are really not even about discussing bills or passing legislation? It's just about getting together to say it's a constitutional, procedural thing, and I never really got into it, but I've seen how it's been used over the years. So literally anybody can say we're calling a session of Congress, and I mean 2 senators can show up. They can have a cup of coffee and not do anything really in particular, and the president would be blocked for making a recess appointment because Congress, the Senate, is in session. Now, I looked into it just to refresh myself, and I saw this, that, anybody can do it. The president is allowed under Article 2, Section 2 of the Constitution to make the recess appointments during recesses or adjournments of Congress. Persons appointed by recess appointments assume their position without approval of the Senate, but must be confirmed by the Senate before the end of the next session of Congress. So it would be if they can find a way in, Matt Gaetz has got to swing the heaviest sledgehammer for 2 years straight and just exhaust himself. Because if the Senate stays the way it is, with the kind of people that are in there, eventually he's going to hit a brick wall. But as long as the Senate meets in pro forma session, Congress never officially adjourns, thus blocking the president from making recess appointments. Now, here's where I found, because I was remembering this from the last 10 years or so. In 2012, President Barack Obama, this is the weird thing, because I don't know how he got around this. Maybe somebody out there can explain. President Barack Obama made 4 recess appointments during Congress's winter break, despite a run of daily pro forma sessions called by Senate Republicans. Obama argued that at the time that pro forma sessions do not block the president's constitutional authority to make appointments. Just do whatever the fuck you want to do, right? Despite being challenged by Republicans, Obama's recess appointments were eventually confirmed by the Democrat-controlled Senate. Now, during August of 2017, now, why? This is just gonna really piss you off. August 2017, the Senate held 9 pro forma sessions to block Republican President Donald Trump from making recess appointments during Congress's annual summer break. Senate Democrats, joined by some moderate Republicans, worried that Trump might dismiss then Attorney General Jeff Sessions and appoint his replacement during the month-long recess. At the same time, Trump had hinted that he might also appoint a new Secretary of Homeland Security to replace John Kelly, who he had named his new Chief of Staff on July 31st. The 9 pro forma sessions, none lasting over 1 minute. That's 60 seconds. They can go in there, they can fart, literally fart, and that will be a session of Congress, which is most sessions of Congress. None lasting over 1 minute had been scheduled on August 3rd by Republican Senator Lisa Big Bird Murkowski of Alaska. However, a spokesman for Senate Majority Leader Republican Mitch McConnell of Kentucky said that the sessions were not intended to block recess appointments. Here's the quote: "To meet our constitutional requirement of our meeting every 5 days, we're doing pro forma, so we didn't do it to block Trump." Of course, the fact that they did block Trump just had to be a happy little accident, especially for that spineless Big Bird Lisa Murkowski. Oh, I'll always remember, Dianne Feinstein just making Lisa Murkowski, who's about 1.5 feet taller than her, crouch down in fear because she's such a fucking bird-like freak. So this is going to be interesting. It's going to be a very interesting fight. I would love to see Matt Gaetz swing a 10-pound sledgehammer for 2 straight years. Would love to see it. But, the fact that anybody can come in and do this is going to be interesting because, Lisa Murkowski will do it again. Susan Collins will show up there and queef for 50 seconds. It should be interesting. And I can't believe it, but there's going to be a major boost in viewership over there on C-SPAN. It's going to be a major boost in viewership. No doubt about it. So that's what we have so far. But Yeah, John Ratcliffe, CIA. I have another list over here we can go through. Of course, all the appointments for diplomats and all that other stuff. There's always going to be swampy shit. There's always going to be not so much America first shit all over. Like I said, lower the bar. Keep all of your real hopes and your action locally. Keep doing what that's what we all have to do while the circus plays out. But it doesn't mean that there isn't going to be some really good performances and that we're not going to get some good stuff out of it. We're going to get a lot more than we would have. So let's see. We're going to learn a lot too. You're going to learn a lot. Just like, in 2017, when we came out of 2017, did you ever think that you would know as much as you did about the functions of the FBI and the FISA courts and all that? Man, it's always a learning experience. So I like that. I like that at least. Just soak it all up and take it with you. Be armed with it going forward. Okay, we'll be right back. Let's get this one started.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's ride!
Okay. Welcome to the show, everybody. It's great to have you on. I'd like to just jump right into this one. You all know Jeff Harmon, jeffharmon.com. I've got his link in the description. He's been on the show many times, a veteran of the astrology world, and it's been the astrologer to the stars. And we're going to be talking with him about very specific things tonight. It's really just a follow-up. So, Jeff, welcome back to the show. It's great to have you on. Oh, hold on. I don't hear you. You're muted.
Yep. There we go. Now we're running.
Perfect.
So how you doing? Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Oh, well, it's awesome to have you back on. And I hope that you've had a fun few, 4 to 6 weeks. There's been a lot going on there. I'm just going to throw it at you right now. We left our late summer session together discussing this tumultuous path that we had out in front of us leading into 2025 with a focus on how the stars were aligning for Biden, for Harris, and for Trump in particular. But now I forget some of the details of our talk, but the question I asked you at the end was that when 2025 rolled around, would Donald Trump be fulfilling his destiny as either Citizen Trump or President Trump? And you couldn't say at the time, but now we have an answer. So I just want to give you some time.
Oh, no, I definitely said at the time, I'm on record saying a number of times on my podcast and on yours, I said at the time that it looked like Trump was going to win.
Okay. Well, then let's.
Oh, no, definitely. I mean, yeah, you can go back. I was saying that back probably 2 months before the election. Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah. And I got a record of that on the podcast. In fact, I actually said I thought it'd be a landslide, but it pissed a lot of people off. So I figured, well, I'll just say leans towards Trump winning. Okay. And I think it leaned that way, don't you? And no, I absolutely said he was going to win. In fact, how I said that was two ways. One is one of the main types of astrology I use is interrogation astrology. And that's not your birth chart. It's not looking at anything. It's just a question. And it came back that Trump was Indiana Jones in the snake pit, and somebody's going to throw him a rope and haul him up out of there. And that's pretty much what happened. I mean, he didn't win. He took, it was a landslide. He kicked butt. He really did. I mean, when you think about it, I think when it's all said and done, he's probably going to have more, electoral college points as he's even got now. If they ever finish counting the votes, what do you think? You think they'll ever get that done?
I don't know. Maybe in a few more years they will. But so your analysis of the last week, then, just take the last week, the last 7 days or so, and what's the explanation for it from your vantage point? Because we've been concentrating on the ground game, the polling, the psychological warfare from the media. How have you been looking at this?
I mean, no question. You had every celebrity in Hollywood. Of course, they were getting paid by the owners. You know, they were literally stuffing money in their pockets to say how great Harris was. But yeah, I mean, all that withstanding, I actually have to say that I had so many calls and so many people telling me I was nuts, telling me, oh, how could this be? You know, Harris is going to win, that I was actually questioning my own analysis. And I went back and I looked at it again. In fact, I'm on record when Alan Lichtman came out. Remember, this is way back, almost 3 months ago. Alan Lichtman came out and he had all his 13, things, and all these pundits were running around saying, oh, Harris is the greatest. She's going to win. She's going to win. And I came out. In fact, you can go back on my YouTube and look at it. And I said, Lichtman's wrong. Trump's going to win. And he did. And what's interesting is, again, I don't need to be right, but the chart was right, and the mind control. And I love your montage, by the way, you just did. When you're bringing me in, I love that because it's a circus. I mean, the game is rigged, folks. The tables are tilted. But what's really interesting right now is we have Pluto in a tropical zodiac, and a lot of people are talking about this, ingressing into the sign of Aquarius. Now, a lot of people are running around saying, oh, this is the age of Aquarius beginning. But in some ways, it kind of is a very powerful thing. Pluto can take 7 to 30 years, and I know that's a big margin, to go around a sign or go through a sign. It actually takes 200 and almost 50 years to go around the zodiac. And that's a long time. And the United States is exactly 248 years old as of last July. The United States is in a Pluto return. And I'm also on record as saying that we were either going to be the phoenix rising out of the ashes or going to be destroyed. I actually said we were going to be destroyed or we're going to be the phoenix rising out of the ashes. And I really think we're the latter. I really do. And I was listening to you quite a bit before I came on, and I love what you're saying. I mean, it is a circus, and a lot of these clowns that are in there, they're bought and paid for. There's no question. George Carlin was right. Forget the politicians. You have owners. They own this place. Wilson sold it to them, and nobody talks about this. Back in 1913, beginning in 1914, right when we magically had one. And he actually said on his deathbed, he said, I sold my great nation to a bunch of bankers. And they own this place. BlackRock, State Street, all these people, everybody talks about them. And yeah, they're definitely there. And yes, they definitely do what they do. And Soros and all the other people we hear about, they're certainly the players in the trenches. But the owners at the top of the pyramid are the people running this whole country. And, we always hear about democracy, right? Well, the founding fathers didn't like that term. They said, no, it's a constitutional republic. Democracy is where 51% rules the 49. Where a constitutional republic, you get to think what you want. And that's really an interesting scenario. You got to have government. You got to have a way to govern. But yeah, it's crazy. And, I really am excited. I think Trump is going to bring, and I'll get hate mail for this, but I think he's going to do amazing. I think he's going to do amazing things. I think this is much bigger than just Trump. I think, and I've been saying this for years, I was on Coast to Coast with George Norrie, and I said, you have a war here between the globalists and the nationalists. It's that simple. They wanted a new one world order. In fact, George Bush Sr., not the shrub, not Junior, but the senior was saying, he was chirping those words back in the 1990s. a new one world order. This is what they want. They want the Chinese model, barcodes on our forehead or on our wrists or wherever else they can put them. And they already got them in our cards, right? You can always swipe, you can always put your handprint at Whole Foods now and pay your bill. But that's what they wanted. And I think this Pluto ingress into the tropical sign of Aquarius is a big deal. It's really a time of transformation. It's an ending in some ways of a lot of this DEI crap and all this identity politics, and we're seeing a new era. And, I agree with you. Some of the picks Trump's, or I should say some of the people Trump is picking does raise an eyebrow, doesn't it? And it's going to be interesting to see where it all goes and where it all spills out. But I think if we take it up to 100,000 feet, I'm very excited about what's going to happen.
Let me ask you this, because here's another thing that people have been asking and wondering, it's myself included, because based on how election night 2020 went, I was expecting all types of things, shenanigans happening this year, and it was so smooth. And right now, I've been getting a lot of people have been echoing that in my inbox, and they say, Frank, it's so deceptively quiet right now. And I think it's because, of course, the victory was so solid that there's just a lot of shocked people out there. There's definitely a lot of traumatized people. There are people screeching and wailing, whatever, but it's inconsequential. Election night was it was smooth as butter. Now, we also had Biden just welcome Trump to the White House in a very cordial way. There's definitely going to be a fight come 2020, especially within the Republican Party itself. But do you think the weeks leading up to Inauguration Day are going to continue to be this smooth?
I think the owners, and this is, again, I go back to that term. What I love is that I think the United States is coming back on to a new era for itself. That's the Pluto return. We were either going to be destroyed or the phoenix rising out of the ashes. But one of the things I've been mentioning a lot is we have Uranus, which takes 84 to 86 years to go around the solar system. Because this is really astronomy. It's not astrology like everybody thinks. It's really astronomy applied to, you could say, our reality structures on this Earth. Every time Uranus goes through the Pleiades, which is the seven sisters of the ancient Greek legend, also it is the seven, stars, the fixed stars that are very dangerous. Every time this has happened, we've had major calamity in the world. Just to give you an idea, last time it happened was World War II. Hitler was marching into France. He was marched to Battle of Dunkirk. All this crazy stuff was going on. Jump back 84 to 86 years, you got the Civil War. Jump back 84 to 86 years before that, you got the Revolutionary War. And if you keep leapfrogging back, you'll find all kinds of crazy stuff was going on in Europe and wars and etc. We're there right now. General Jack Keating is saying, and I think he's a pretty, solid guy in terms of my opinion. He's saying right now, we are seeing, and this is, again, the owners dishing out the money to both sides. Forget the politicians. These bankers, these Western bankers are running everything. How did Iran get the resources it's got? Look at the stuff that's been going on. I really like Elon Musk and Vivek coming in, and Tulsi Gabbard. I thought that was a great pick because Gabbard, she's had a lot of intelligence background, and she was the first one calling out the biolabs. She was the first one mentioning all this crap that's been going on over in Ukraine. And, in some ways, I'll get hate mail for this one too, but Putin might have saved the world by not nuking back. They've been firing missiles into Moscow. Now, I'm not saying it's right that he did what he did, but there's a lot more down this rabbit hole than we've been told by the mind control media. And I can tell you, we've been just shoveling money into the furnace over there, billions. And, you're right. It's very mysterious how it's all just shiny and lovely and wonderful and shaking hands at the White House today with Trump and Biden. Biden, I don't think he can find his way in and out of the room. It's all very mysterious what's going on.
There he is. Like I said, it's been cordial, and there's a lot of blue-pilled people who looked at the election results of this year and had some very interesting questions for just speaking out loud on public on social media. Of course, they'd never be able to go to where that the answer leads, and neither will the people that they are petitioning to recount the election. They want to know where the extra 10 million votes went and all that stuff. And of course, I would expect the Joe Biden type of people to be always stoking people's curiosity, but never actually giving them any action. Because what are you going to do? Look into 2024? It's only going to prove 2020 was the biggest farce on earth. So there's a
totally.
So let's just put ourselves a minute after the inauguration. Let's just say, okay, the day comes and goes with little fanfare. Wow, it's been smooth so far, aside from all the nomination and recess appointment nonsense. What did we have any kind of a timeline shift in 2025? Do you think
dangerous time?
It's
dangerous time, and this is that Uranus going over the Pleiades. See, Uranus is going to retrograde over a really evil fixed star right at the end of December, and then it's going to come back over one of the most dangerous stars in the sky called Caput Algol, and that's going to happen this spring. Also, I wouldn't say Trump is out of the woods. It was amazing. I did a live right when Trump was shot, and I had been warning Trump was under grave danger for the last year. Do you know that bullet whizzed past his head exactly when Mars was literally hitting his midheaven, literally within minutes of arc. Astrologers use terms minutes of arc, meaning degree minutes, you see. So not time minutes, but it was right there. And I was like, okay. And then anybody wants to tell me it was just some kid up there. There's so overwhelming evidence that this was a top-down hit job. So this whole fanfare that we're seeing with Biden, and it's great. I'm glad that Biden, was smiling, whoever it was behind the mask, or if it was really him. But bottom line is, we're certainly seeing a wag the dog situation here. There's no question. It's a very crazy time. And, again, I think we have a war between the globalists and the nationalists. Well, the nationalists just won. That's my opinion, at least for the next 4 years. I think we're going to see, again, with the majority of, you were mentioning some good points here on the Senate. I think they're going to take the House for sure. They're one vote away. They're at 217 right now. They might hit 218 as we speak. But sooner or later, they're going to end up with a majority. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's well into the 220s. So they'll have a House majority. But you're right. A lot of these people, the coercion behind the scene, isn't it amazing how these politicians who get, a meager salary of, somewhere 80, 100, 150,000 a year, and they're all multimillionaires by the time they get out. Yeah. What about that?
I know. Just having an office space in Washington, D.C. negates $100,000 a year. So
the government probably covers that stuff, but they come out filthy rich. They know when to move on stocks and various different things. They got a lot of inside knowledge, and also I think a lot of silver's crossing the palm too, to get people to go certain ways. I think it was Rothschild said it best. He says, "You give me control of the money, and I don't care who makes the laws." And he was right about that, because the money talks. The money talks, and you look at what has gone on in the Biden administration. I mean, when you really, all this warm, fuzzy stuff today was great, but when you really look at what has happened to this country and the world at large, wow. I mean, we probably have 20 million plus people in here, and God only knows what we got. And this is what's eerie right now, is we could see events pop up between now and this spring that are very challenging in the world. I hope we don't, but we could. And I also think when we're staring at 36 trillion, right after the party's over with and the, confetti starts, falling on the floor, watch out for the economy, because we could see some serious stuff coming in this summer. We got a $36 trillion debt. And I think, Trump is right about the tariffs. I think he's right about many mechanisms to get the economy back up and going. One thing's for sure is the energy. I mean, we got to get that flying. Well, and we will.
You brought up the central bankers. You brought up Rothschild. You dropped that very famous quote there. I'm sure you saw the answer that Jerome Powell had when he was asked if Donald Trump wants him gone, if he's going to fire him, will you leave? He just said no. He said no. He's not leaving. I'm staying here. I'm the Fed chair, and that's all. It reminded me of that really incredible exchange between Alan Greenspan and the media there too, talking about how there is a relationship between the Federal Reserve and the government that really that we don't have any oversight. We are who we are.
And you know, the Federal Reserve isn't any more federal than Federal Express. There's no connection. The Federal Reserve Act, I think it was the 16th Amendment, allowed them to come in and they literally print our money. They tell us when their interest rates are going up and going down. And the power that you have in printing a country of this magnitude's, finances is amazing. And not only do they run our money, these same bankers run the entire Western financial system. And of course, China and the rest of them are at the effect of it. If you go back, my biggest awakening was back in the late 80s, early 90s. I had a banker. They were doing what they called debenture roll programs. And he was telling me about it. I'm going, yeah, this is cool. So he brought me into a federal vault. It was fork truck pallets. I was, as far as I could see, it was huge, of what they call German bonds, gold-backed war bonds. And they were from Rhine-Elbe Union. They were all about utility companies, electric, gas, coal, all this stuff. Guess what? Hitler was funded by the U.S. Treasury Department. Mm-hmm. In fact, all these bonds, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, this is 1933, mind you, all callable in 1945. The same thing with Japan. We gave Japan all the money so they could buy steel that we sold to them, and then they shot it back at us. So interesting stuff. And I'm not sitting here talking conspiracies. This is fact. I didn't believe it until this banker had showed me. He says, oh, yeah. He says, that this was all issued by the Treasury Department to the Republic of Germany and Japan. And I think Italy was in there too. The great access, right? Well, I mean, where do you think Iran got money? Where do you think all this stuff has been coming from? And funding all this, they open the floodgates. So it's a lot of stuff that's going on behind the scenes. And again, going back to Trump, I think there's something much bigger than just Trump here. We have so many powerful people behind the scenes, and there's something very sacred about the United States. George Washington had talked about all these very mysterious experiences he had. He was visited by this angel. My camera will come right back on.
That's right.
It does that. It times out. Sorry about that. But I'll just keep talking.
Yeah.
So he was visited by this angel. And in fact, this was during Valley Forge. This is a matter of record. And they said he was literally going to give up. The soldiers were barefoot. They couldn't eat. They didn't have any ammunition. And of course, that was that surprise attack that they made on New York across, the very famous story across the Potomac. And that tipped the scales of the war. And this angel had told them, do not give up. You will win. There was an Indian chief, too, that had actually fired at George Washington way back earlier when he was in the French-Indian War, and Washington actually fought for the English. He was an officer in there. And all the officers were killed except one. His name was Braddock, apparently. And Washington had bullet holes all through his coat, and he never had a single injury. And the chief had come up to Washington many years later, and he says, we saw a great spirit over you. And he said, we couldn't kill you. He says, I know I shot you and we couldn't kill you.
It's that you're talking about the Battle of Monongahela, I believe.
I think so. Yeah, you could be right. That was the one previous. Yeah, you got good memory there. But yeah, it was one of those, right, in the French-Indian War. And everyone was killed. And Washington even had his horse shut out from underneath him. So there's a lot of mystical experiences that were tied to this. And when you think about our Constitution and our Bill of Rights, literally the Iroquois Indians were quoted on this, and many, many others were brought in to give input, some of the finest minds at the time. And our Constitution and Bill of Rights was designed against tyranny. So even though you got a lot of, players in Washington and the Senate and the House, which is really an ingenious setup when you think about it in the Supreme Court. And yeah, when you microanalyze everybody, there's a lot of bad players, a lot of bad eggs. But the system worked, and it worked this time. And I think the only reason Trump won is because they knew these guys are really smart. They manipulated the hell out of the 2020 election. I can tell you that whole COVID thing. I cast charts, and I was actually, it was either on Coast or Jimmy Church, one of them. And he said, is Trump going to win? I said, yeah. But I said, I'm not so sure this is going to go smooth. Well, it didn't. He didn't actually get in the White House. So this year, we actually had a question. Will Trump win and get in the White House, so. And I think he really will. I'll be talking on my podcast a lot about the inauguration. One of the things really cool to look at is the inauguration time a president or any ruler or person elected takes the oath of office. There was a lady, I forget her name, you probably might remember, in England. She was a prime minister that was signed in here like a year or two ago. And I looked at the time and I said, this is not going to fly. Mercury was retrograde in some horrible aspects. She resigned like, 2-3 days later. So look at Biden's inauguration astrologically. It was horrible. It was so morose.
They started 6 minutes early, I think. They started early. Yeah. We said, what the hell's going on here? It's almost like they were rushing, almost like they felt like something was going to prevent them. They had to do it quick.
Obama's, I call him Obama. His inauguration was, they actually had to do it twice because the first time he did it, the moon was void, of course. So interesting stuff. And they actually re-signed him in. I don't know if you remember that. But,
well, what you're talking about here is something. This is like I said, I wanted to bring you on for a follow-up on this very specific issue. I have other topics I'd love to bring up with you when we bring you back the next time. But the last question I had is actually going in the direction where you're right now, where we talk about things that have been occulted, things that have been made secret, that are now they're clandestine instead of out in the open. And last night, I was discussing this with both of my guests, and my guests, they both felt very strongly that exposing corruption. We were talking about what comes. We have very short 4 years with Donald Trump.
Very short.
Whatever the hell this window is going to provide us, it's going to be closed in an instant. It's almost as like in the grand scheme of just time and space, this is a heart valve opening and closing. 4 years.
That's all it is.
So
very good point.
I mean, so we're talking about the years after. What does this mean? Because the people who are voting for Trump are not voting because they love the Republican Party. It can just be evaporated in no time. And now what we were discussing last night was that exposing corruption through disclosure on all fronts, from JFK to hidden technology to UFOs and space, that right there could be something that galvanizes the public in ways that last beyond these very short years here with Trump. What do you think?
It's very likely to happen. It's very likely to happen.
So then there's my last question for you tonight. What do you think this administration will mean to various disclosure movements?
I think it's probably going to be one of the most unprecedented changes probably since the beginning of this country. And I think it's going to be for the positive. And, for everybody that hates Trump, I'd say, wait and see what happens. I think there's powers behind Trump that are much bigger than just he himself. The United States is a very sacred mission. I mean, really, when you think about it, there is not another country. What I love about the Constitution of the Bill of Rights, I don't care how tall you are. I don't care what color you are. I don't care what you look like, fat, skinny, doesn't matter what you believe. The Constitution gives you a freedom of rights. This is a constitutional republic. And I think it's going to go back to that more and more and more. And I think you're going to see a lot of crooked people weeded out. And it's interesting, this whole Getz thing with, getting him in as the Department of Justice, head, the Attorney General. That's a weird pick. That really raised my eyebrow too. And, again, you're right. What's so great about our country is the Senate has to approve all this. Congress has to, vet them and approve them, et cetera. But I think when it all is shaked out, and when everything, all the monkeys out of the barrel end up, boom, across the table, I think we're going to look back and see that this was a time when America was the phoenix rising out of the ashes. And it's never going to be perfect. Trump's not God. Nobody's God, but I can tell you, I think there's forces behind this that are going to be amazing. And it's really, as long as we don't end up in a war, that's the only thing I'm worried about, is the owners at the top of the pyramid might just throw a real hard curveball at us. And let's hope they don't. It leans towards trouble. but I think it's going to get quelled and ironed out. I think once Putin finds out that he's not got missiles pointed at his forehead right outside of his door and biolabs, he might back off. And again, I'm not agreeing with anything, but I think he might back off, and that's how Trump will settle it. The Middle East is another story. But I think that'll get eventually settled. That's been something that's going on forever. And but it's if we can get through this next year without any major events, and again, it's always follow the money. These people fund things. I think what's different this time is, again, the Pluto return in the United States is truly a transformation. We would have been destroyed. I mean, $36 trillion in debt, that's still going to take a rabbit or two out of the hat to pull that one off. And when you think about how much money that is, I actually did an experiment. I said, okay, how long is, how much, would be a billion seconds? Well, in terms of age, you're just a little over 40 years old at a billion seconds. Guess how old you would be at a trillion seconds? Just to give you an idea of the quantity of a trillion. You'd be 11,760 something odd years old. That's how long a trillion seconds. We're 36 trillion in debt. So it's going to take some real fast dancing to turn the ship around. These people have shipwrecked this place. And it's, granted, a long history of it. But I think it's now time to stop letting the politicians sell our manufacturing overseas and capping off our resources like they have. And you're going to see, California, New York, and already, Illinois, they're going to really do everything they can to come back and create trouble. I think Tom Homan was a really good pick.
Yes.
If I was an illegal alien, I think I'd be packing my lunch right now and hitting the trail.
Well, I've been getting. I want to have a friend of mine come on to do a special report on Friday, but there has been things coming out of New York that there have already been people hightailing it out of there by bus going up to Canada. A lot of the people, especially in a concentration of the Venezuelan Tren de Agua gang, whatever the hell they're talking about, the ones that have been taking over buildings all over the country that are being denied. I don't know how much it's happening, to what degree. I told a couple of my friends who do business in the city to let me know if they see anything really starting to be visual change, but it's got to be, man, this is not going to be a bump in the road. This is going to be 4 years of hard effort. I know it.
Oh, yeah, you bet. You bet. Yeah. And I mean, you look at, they want to maintain sanctuary cities here in Los Angeles. And, if Trump invokes that act, that terrorist act of I think it was 1789 or something, you might know the exact name of it. But he invokes that. I don't care what Gruesome says. We call him Gruesome here. They're going to come in here and do what they got to do. So this is going to be a very powerful couple of years to begin with, for sure. I'm excited about Kennedy too. I mean, getting rid of all the fluoride and all the stuff in our food is so amazing. Barnum and Bailey in their circuses and the Ringley brothers used to use fluoride to quiet the animals so they wouldn't attack people working with them. And now they've been putting that in our water. They've been putting that in our water since the late 40s. And that is so toxic. And some cities are up to like 10, 20 parts per million. That's enough to make your eyeballs cross. And I got to tell you, I have a number of doctor friends, one of them in particular, she's amazing. She does MRIs, and she says the pineal gland on most people is so calcified. Do you know what that's where consciousness integrates into the body. This isn't just Trump and Biden and the New World Order. This is a very demonic effect that's been in play for a long, long time. You get into David Icke and the ufologists, they all talk about there's a lot of crazy stuff going on, let alone, might we mention, human trafficking and all the crazy stuff we hear about with this child sex trafficking. I mean, it's horrible. It's evil. There's no other words for it. It's evil. And this is why you're not dealing with just bad guys here and money. You're dealing with a real evil component. And I think, the Book of Enoch and many other texts speak about this. There was inbreeding. And there's a lot more going on this planet than meets the eye. And I really have to say, good always wins. And I was going to use the word trumps, but I wouldn't do that. But good always does win. And, even though a lot of people go through a lot of drama, and we're all just spiritual beings having a physical experience. And I really believe that this is a very positive thing, and that this ingress of Pluto moving into the air sign of Aquarius is very powerful. And, the water bearer was always the sign of Aquarius. And that's a metaphor for spiritual water, the flow of the etheric energy, of the divine energy. So even though, Washington's going to do what Washington does, and you're going to see musical chairs and all this crazy stuff going on, I think we're going to see a lot of house cleaning and literally taking a flamethrower to a lot of the agencies. What I love about Musk and Vivek, they're probably, and Kennedy too, when we see this all done, there's not going to be a lot standing. They're going to have to really cut and eliminate things. And, there's a lot going on.
Well, I'll be the judge of that, Jeff, because I don't want it to be standing anymore. And if I'm not going,
oh, you got it.
I'm not going.
I'm with you.
I'm not going to give out participation trophies if you don't get the job done, because there's no reforming these things. If you just clean them out and put good people in there that we would all say are much better people. You're writing your name in sand. So, Jeff, listen, give us some appearances. How often are you posting your podcast? Where can people?
My podcast every week. Everybody can join us every week on Thursdays at 9 a.m. Pacific time, and of course that would be noon Eastern time. Yeah, every Thursday, and then we're also coming out with another show that's really great. We've been working on it, and we're coming out with a monthly show too. So every week we do a live, and it's a lot of fun. I talk about cycles. I also talk about a lot of spiritual things, and also the astrological events that we touched on just slightly here today that are upcoming, because this is still going to be a roller coaster ride. I hope I'm wrong about that, but Trump's not out of the woods. I'm really surprised that they haven't tried more attempts, and I think they're going to try more assassination attempts on Trump. The owners don't want him in there. But I don't know if we'll hear about it, because the mind control news is very controlled.
Oh, yeah.
And, right now it's so sad. Everybody in the View is telling everybody, oh, hate your family, all this. We're all Americans. We just got to back off. And, how about the country? How about moving forward here? I've even got people in my family telling me other people won't speak to them because they voted for Trump. And I'm like, okay, you got to get over it, And this was a major psyops on us. And it has been for a long, long time. I mean, you go back, the stuff that's been going on in this country. I was a little kid. I remember Kennedy getting killed and standing. I felt that energy, man. I knew that it wasn't what they were telling us. And I think you're going to see that come out. I'll bet it's about to be released very, very soon.
Well, okay. Again, like I said, I think disclosure is going to be a very big part of the success. If there's going to be success,
we are not alone. There's no doubt about that. We are not alone. I have had so many experiences in my own life. So many people I know have. There's been commanders of Minot Air Force Base. I was friends with Dr. Lear. I don't know if you know who he is, but he was amazing. He would take implants out of people, get them tested in lab. And, anybody who thinks that, it's all the narrative that they shove down our throats every day. Like George said, a big club telling us what to believe. They better wake up and smell the coffee.
Well, JeffHarmon.com. I can't wait to have you back for a full-throated session here. This was just a very, very necessary follow-up after the event of the last 7 days, and I hope all the best for you. And we'll be in touch. And I have your the link to your website in the description of the episode. And again, thank you for all the very, very compelling input.
Yeah, well, thank you too, bud, and keep up the good work, man. You're doing great.
Well, I can't wait to have you back. Have a good one.
Right. Sounds great. You bet. Thanks.
All right, guys. There you go. There is Jeff Harmon. Follow him wherever he is, because he makes a lot of appearances. I have a couple of minutes before we go to our break, and I want to just take some calls now, because there's a lot going. First of all, here is Alan Greenspan. This is what I was looking for before. Here you go. Alan Greenspan admitting the Federal Reserve answers to no one.
What is the proper relationship, what should be the proper relationship between a chairman of the Fed and a president of the United States?
Well, first of all, the Federal Reserve is an independent agency, and that means basically that there is no other agency of government which can overrule actions that we take. So long as that is in place and there is no evidence that the administration or the Congress or anybody else is requesting that we do things other than what we think is the appropriate thing, then what the relationships are don't frankly matter. And I've had very good relationships with presidents.
Oh, I'm sure you have, Mr. Greenspan. That's Andrea Mitchell's 99-year-old husband now, still holding on, still clutching to life. Ladies and gentlemen, do you think our founders, since the founders have come up a lot tonight, do you think our founders would have ever carved out an exception for anybody to speak like that? Especially when it comes to control over the money supply? No. Jerome Powell, just put a dagger through the heart of this fucking thing. Finally, once and for all, please. Please. Put a stake through the heart of this thing once and for all. Now, it's just too much to ask in 4 years. It's too much to ask. There's too much groundwork that has to be laid before that kind of a demolition job. But still, it's a lot. And I'd love to get you guys to call in and talk to me a little bit here. The line is 914-200-0269. We got 8 minutes until the break. Rapid fire. Give me some thoughts. And in the meantime, I'll read you this. Here's a little bit more from over the course of a day. Here's a statement from Donald Trump on Truth Social about who is this? Marco Rubio. Here's what he said. Hereby nominated to the United States Secretary of State. He's a highly respected leader, a very powerful choice for freedom. He'll be a strong advocate for our nation and a true friend to our allies, and also to all of our special biolab interests in shady foreign countries. And a fearless warrior who will never back down to our adversaries. I look forward to working with Marco to make America and the world safe and great again. So that's the weirdest one. Now, what does this mean? What does that really mean? Is it a short assignment? Then you fire Marco Rubio like you did Rex Tillerson. You fire him after 6 months, and now you have him out of the Senate and everywhere else. I don't know. I don't know what the hell that means. Maybe that's part of draining the swamp. I could dream, right? Giving people temporary nominations just to be able to fire them and have them lose their Senate seats. Of course, they can go run again, but still, whatever. I don't know. And there's one here from Tulsi Gabbard. Will serve as Director of National Intelligence. Over 2 decades. I would have said state. If you had to give her a spot, I would have said state only because of her non-interventionist, not isolationist, non-interventionist bent when it comes to war. That's what I would have considered. You know, I don't have everything in front of me. You guys, some of you guys know these people's profiles better than I do, but as they say, there must be a plan, right? So there you have it. I know Tulsi will bring the fearless spirit that defined her illustrious career to our intelligence community, championing our constitutional rights and securing peace through strength. She'll make us all proud. That's another one. And then what's this one? We'll take that in a second. 302, you're on the air. Go ahead. 302. Holly?
Yes.
Oh, not Holly.
Don. It's Don.
Hey, Don. How's Holly feeling tonight?
She's doing all right.
All right, good.
I'm really just trying to figure out what the administration is going to do regarding prioritizing what is the most important thing to take care of first. And I think you touched on it. The Fed has to go.
Ugh.
It has to go. It is number one priority. Everything else is second place aside from immigration. And I just was wondering what your thoughts are.
Oh, yeah. Well, listen, there's so many. When you think about how, if you think about the United States in like a dungeon somewhere, what is the condition of the once constitutional Republic of the United States? It's not like the Constitution had been repealed or whatever. It's just been ignored. Everything's already codified law. We know that it's supreme over everything else that has been made precedent through the courts and whatever. It's just been ignored. And I just see the Republic is like chained up in this dungeon somewhere. And there's so many things torturing it. You wonder, okay, where do we start? Man, oh man. I mean, the money supply, that Alan Greenspan clip that I just played is very hard to find. That
Absolutely.
It's very hard to find. I think if most people listened, then again, I don't know. I think if most people listened to that with even just a small amount of education, perhaps they would say, well, that doesn't sound right. What do you mean the relationship between the central bank and the government, the people's government, is irrelevant? What are you talking about? A private institution has control over our money supply. That does not sound appropriate. I don't even know what the hell I'm talking about, but it doesn't sound appropriate. I mean, this is a big problem. And if you get control of money, then you can't be the methadone drip providers for the rest of the world with the foreign aid and everything else. I mean, the Federal Reserve is really just like cutting off the spigot to so many problems.
100%. I agree with you 100%. The other thing I wanted to touch base on was I really think Trump and his administration need to come out immediately within the next week or two and offer amnesty to the deep state underlings, the people who are put in place by the higher ups, to come forward before Matt Gaetz and the new DOJ come into fruition, and give them a period of 60 to 90 days to come forward with proof and go after these people and make sure that, these people are not going to learn until their hand is burned and they're taught a lesson. We can't project our own morals onto the other side, because they're not going to follow suit. Once they get back in power, they're going to resume like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
These people need to be taught a lesson.
I think that's fun. I think that is that's a really interesting. Thank you so much for the call, John. That's a really interesting way. How do you dangle that out there? How do you make it be known to the underlings? If you are, I don't know, but you have to message out there. Come and talk to us now. There's a sweeping investigation of this. If you have any knowledge about this, and that, just something it might seem vague and innocuous to most people who are not in government, but for those who know, to make their hair stand up and say, I better call somebody, I better at least call a lawyer. That would be interesting. What the hell would it be? I saw somebody in the chat room that says that Frank doesn't want to be happy. Frank is very happy. The fuck are you talking about? I'm a very happy guy. Chris Ann Hall said, because I got in touch with her, I said, hey, listen, talking about the pro forma, talking about recess appointments over here, I would love to know what you think about Matt Gaetz. What are we talking about? Chris Ann said this. She said he has to play the political game and put up a public fight. It's going to be a wild ride. Maybe Trump just wants to put someone like Gaetz up against these guys at the confirmation hearings and make them look like total loser globalist assholes. She said a-holes. She's very proper. A-holes. You think that the light was shined last time around? We ain't seen nothing yet. He's not just picking anti-establishment. He's picking articulate bare-knuckle brawlers. Trust me, Gaetz will knock the crap out of them and doesn't care if they don't approve him. He's a winner either way. I said, yeah, but we would need him to be approved so he can really kick the crap out of people. I mean, is there any tricks you seeing being used to make this happen? Or can literally a conga line of uniparty assholes just go up there and call pro forma sessions to, take a shot of whiskey, go home, and boom, nobody can make an appointment that day. Chris Ann said there's no guessing or speculating this time around. Maybe he is the strategy. Maybe Gates is the strategy. We will have to see. It's super early in the game, and Gates might just be a bullet fodder or maybe a lightning rod to make the real guy that they want to put out there look better. Like I said, Gates doesn't care if he's picked. He's solid no matter what. He might just be wanting the fight because it's fun. That's an interesting take on it. Wowee. You know, it's crazy. We're a week into, we haven't even started the 4 years. That makes me feel good, you know, because I'm gonna relish this. Gotta relish it. I really just, come on. If we are going to be stolen from and be forced to watch this dogfight, this is programming that we have involuntarily funded. I better get a show, especially if there's no refunds. But man, oh man, if they get rid of the income tax, I'll buy you all a drink. I don't know how I'll do it, but I'll buy you all a drink. If you don't, and if you don't drink, I'll buy you a mineral water. Something's going to happen, and I will. I'm buying around. I don't know how I'm going to do it. What else do we have? Yeah, but Alan Greenspan. It's probably been a while since some of you have seen that clip. Jay Britt says, halfway through another week. Thanks for bringing Jeff Harmon back for a timely visit. Looking forward to Jim Lee. Awesome show, Frank. Now, here's the only thing, and I wasn't going to go back and forth with Jeff because I just wanted to get to my 3 big questions. When he was on, I believe it was like August 20th, something around there, I wanted to talk to him about the assassination attempts, I might have been just 1, maybe 2 at that time. There's really just one big one. I mean, everybody was in on. The Florida one, I don't know, that was weird with the Ukrainian shill. And then there was another one that people were talking about that I didn't really even follow that much because it's just like whatever at this point. But we had that. We had the White House coup with Biden, and then we had just all of the media magicians coming out to try to make Kamala Harris look like some pearl, the pearl of the Atlantic, which was just so ridiculous, as we can see. Absolutely ridiculous. There's nothing to have been believed about any of it. But it was around August 20th, and I know you guys and gals remember it. Now, I don't know, when we left off, I said, well, Jeff, the real question is, are we talking about Citizen Trump or President Trump? And he said that is a really great question, and I have to do some work on it. That was a cliffhanger, and I wasn't going to, keep him on the hook there because I wanted the conversation to go on here. So I don't know if maybe he did some work on it really quick, and by the end of August, early September, he made some very definitive pronouncements about Trump is going to win. We are talking President Trump. But then again, the real question is it president and also inaugurated? Because he won in 2020 as well, but that didn't work out. So I don't know. But when we left off 3/4 of the way through August, the last time Jeff and I spoke, there was no big pronouncements made about Trump going to win. I would have remembered that very clearly. All right, let's take a really quick break. When we come back, a couple of more items before Jim Lee comes on. I want to talk about all of, how the private sector is being scanned for talent and ideas, especially on the RFK side of things. So don't go anywhere. It's going to be a good one. I promise you.
It's intermission time, folks. Time out to press the like button. Thank you.
Quite frankly.
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 Quite frankly, guys.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly. So everybody watch. Quite frankly. With Frank. Quite frankly.
How dare you?
Okay. I got some good stuff here for you. Oh, and I just want to make another announcement real quick, because if I don't, who will? For November, I have a very special offer I want to send out to you. In November, here's what we're going to do. I got a really awesome thing for you with Polaroid Clubs. I would love to see what little spaces we have left on Patreon Subscribestar for the Polaroid sponsorship. That's where every month, not only do you get all of the universal perks of the Sunday streams with me, book club, film club that's coming up in 2025, the quarterly giveaways that you're automatically entered into, and of course the newsletter. But you also get a one-of-a-kind physical photo from me that nobody in the world has sent to you every month. And it's always fun. Sometimes it's a little awkward. But for the month of November, we're going to include, with your first Polaroid, not only stickers, a bookmark so you're ready for the book club in the new year, but also as a kicker, Paige at the Coffee Company is going to send you an 8-ounce sample bag of our Elevation blend, the light roast, as well as a free bag of chocolate-covered espresso beans. So you're getting that. There's like maybe 10 or 12 spots left on both Subscribestar and Patreon. Become a Polaroid sponsor. It's a lot of fun. You get to look forward to the mail showing up every month. You know, it might be a picture of me and Aurora doing something, whatever the hell it is, but I appreciate your support and just trying to find little fun ways of getting the audience involved, because going into the new year, we have got to use what little we have to outshine the billion-dollar rat's nest that is the old media, because they're not just going to go away. It's going to be kicking and screaming, but they're not just going to go away. Okay, let's see here. Samuel Alito plans to remain on the Supreme Court. That's fine, Sam. You can stick around for 3.5 more years. That's fine. You've got maybe 3.25 years left, and then you have to get the hell out. Then you must get the hell out, and I think you know that. So you do it. Listen to this guy. Now, anytime that you are on the internet and somebody comments on your comment with like some smarmy actually comment, and they try being they try getting under your skin, this is who's usually commenting. I don't know who he is, but it's really pathetic. Listen.
Hi there. Where are all the Trump supporters? Really, I want to know, where are you?
Notice the decor. He's definitely at his parents' house. That is his mother's recliner. Okay? Nobody would get that color brown except a boomer.
All the supporters of Donald Trump. Before the election, there was troll after troll after troll after troll talking about the millions of you. Uh-huh. And continuously gloating to us about how great your president is. Where are you?
I don't know. We're working. We're working. We feel a little bit validated. You know, just taking a couple of days to smell the roses. This guy is like upset that he's not getting trolled. I'm telling you, this is why they say don't feed the trolls, because look at him. He's upset. Like, why am I not getting abused? Can somebody abuse me tonight, please?
Where are you? I don't even see you trolling the posts of Democrats and liberals. What are you hiding from? Where are you?
We're recounting the votes. We're recounting the votes. That's where we all are. It's ridiculous. Some people just don't know what to do with themselves, obviously. Here's another one from Donald Trump today. Congratulations to Senator John Thune, the newly elected Senate Majority Leader. He moves quickly and will do an outstanding job. So there's a little bit of buttering up going on here. I look forward to working with him and Senators John Barrasso, Senator Majority Whip, Tom Cotton, Shelley Moore Capito, James Langford, and Tim Scott, National Republican Senator Committee Chairman, to make America great again. Obviously, you got to say you can't come out of you can't come out of the gate swinging. That a guy that you already know is not going to be very reliable, or hasn't given you any real reason. to believing he'll be reliable. Here's a little bit from Steve Bannon, though. Here's Bannon, 35 seconds of Bannon talking about Kash Patel, FBI director, when Chris Wray resigns, which is just so incredible. I mean, look, I got to speak with Kash Patel a couple of times with Tracy on Dark to Light. That's just interesting. I think that's the first time I can say, oh, well, yeah, I've interviewed an FBI director. I knew of him when. That's interesting. I'm sure it'll be a lot harder to get him on the show now, even though I haven't been able to secure it thus far. But listen to this.
Must make sure we're having inroads, folks, but we have not seized the institution. 202-224-3121. I just want the audience to know your impact. Right now, it's being reported not by the War Room. We're repeating what other news sources are saying. It looks like Kash Patel may be the new director of the FBI, and Tulsi Gabbard may be the new head of DNI, the director of national intelligence, which, as you know, all 17 intelligence agencies, including the Central Intelligence Agency, report up to that.
There's a lot of things you can say that you wish can be better. It's always going to be that way. It's always going to be that way, especially when we talk about governance on this level, where the premise of 90% of it is illegal already. Just a house of mirrors. But there's a lot that is just really interesting that you had never gotten into. I mean, this is extreme. Extreme awesome. Some of it is extremely awesome. But together we go into the fog, you know? Together we go. Let's see here. What else can we bring up? I had a few other ones. Trump draft executive order would create board of purged generals. The Trump transition team is considering a draft executive order that establishes a warrior board of retired senior military personnel with the power to review 3- and 4-star officers and to recommend removals of any deemed unfit for leadership. I'd have to imagine they'd start with the men who think they're women. That would have to be the starting point. If Donald Trump approves the order, it could fast-track the removal of generals and admirals found to be lacking in requisite leadership qualities, according to a draft of the order reviewed by the Wall Street Journal. But it could also create a chilling effect on top military officers, given the president-elect's past vow to fire woke generals, referring to officers seen as promoting diversity in the ranks at the expense of military readiness. Yes, that would be a good thing. A good thing. As commander-in-chief, Trump can fire any officer at will, but an outside board whose members he appoints would bypass the Pentagon's regular promotion system, signaling across the military that he intends to purge a number of generals and admirals. The draft order says it aims to establish a review that focuses on leadership capability, strategic readiness, and commitment to military excellence. The draft doesn't specify what officers need to do or present to show if they meet those standards. The draft order originated with one of several outside policy groups collaborating with the transition team and is one of numerous executive orders under review by Trump's team, a transition official said. It would be made up of retired generals, non-commissioned officers who would send their recommendations to the president. Those identified for removal would be retired at their current rank within 30 days. Again, great. Great news. Now, as far as the military goes, it seems this is another thing that can really change from administration to administration, especially since there really doesn't seem to be anything the problem is that there's nothing cohesive. There's no bond between the parties, between the factions at play here. There's no bond. This stuff, maybe it was happening in the 90s. Maybe it was happening prior to 9/11 in some kind of an undetected way, that there was social engineering going in. Of course, there's always been that timeline of events with gays in the military, with women in combat roles, all that stuff. That was always kind of like bubbling beneath the surface, and it was always there. But I don't know. It seemed like there was a lot more cohesion between these rival political factions when it came to just keeping the military ready to go out there and kick ass if there's actually a legitimate reason to deploy them. But, you know, when there is no cohesion between major factions within a country like this who just represent not just, you know, different approaches to governance, but they represent different realities. I mean, it's just a constant reminder of how the situation is. Let me see here. Okay, let me see here. Krista, producer, just said, I just fact checked the August episode with Jeff Harmon. He said it was Mercury retrograde and he was going to wait to cast charts. You were the first to directly ask. He said that there was a strong chance Trump was going to get in, but it wouldn't be clean election and there would be issues with declaring him the winner and getting to the inauguration. Okay. All right. So I didn't know when he said that. I said, okay, well, to come out and say and guarantee he was going to win and all that stuff, it was going to be President Trump. I know he wasn't that forthright with it. So I guess all the chart casting had to have happened after August 20th or 21st, whenever it was. But thankfully, it looks clean, a lot cleaner than it is. Doesn't look like anybody's trying to challenge anything. And again, that's because where would challenging lead it to? There's more than 100 ways for these people to skin a cat, and obviously they have a lot of friends that they can tap in the opposition party, the GOP, the GOPP. Okay. Man, does time fly. August 20th. That was like 3 years ago. Here's Ken Delanian, says it's not a good day after Matt Gaetz' nomination. DOJ career lawyers are already freaking out. This is according to MSNBC, posted by Citizen Free Press.
Well, Katie, I've gotten two different texts from different people at the Justice Department who just used the word insane to respond and react to this potential appointment, and then also questioning whether Matt Gaetz can be confirmed. And one person asked me to research whether anyone had ever been nominated for the post of Attorney General who had been investigated by the Justice Department. We'll have to look into that, but my initial reading is that I can't think of any time that's ever happened in American history. And
yeah, I know. Well, listen, there's no. We're also living in unprecedented times where you really have to assume until the facts of the case are all laid out in front of you. Every big headline, every controversy in the media, every time somebody's indicted and brought before some grand jury or something like that in New York or D.C., depending on the host city, the DA's office that's working the case, the prosecutor, everybody's known associates, you just really have to assume everything is horse shit. You know, investigate. Yeah, he was investigated. Oh, by whom? Okay, it's just like, yeah. I'm sure it's never fun to be investigated and have your life just, splayed out in front of you, and you're being, you're fighting for your reputation. And now, even if you get out clean, it's still just going to be a media talking point. This is just the way it works. This is the whole idea of lawfare. So I'm sure we're going to be making a lot of precedents here. The president, the 47th president of the United States, 34 times indicted. Sexual assault, blah, 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 blah. They created all that out of sheer political will. And then they send out Ken Delanian, this mousy little idiot out there, to talk about precedent. They don't know if this might be the first time that someone's who could be, in that kind of a post, who's been investigated by the DOJ. Oh, wow. Incredible. Incredible. The way that they report on their own shenanigans is just incredible.
Not only was Gaetz investigated and not charged, we should point out, in a sex trafficking investigation, but he has been perhaps among the top 5 most vociferous critics of the FBI and the Justice Department. And not just critics, but accusing them of being corrupt and weaponized and unethical at every single congressional hearing that anytime he's on the Judiciary Committee, and anytime Chris Wray, the FBI director, or Merrick Garland, Attorney General, or other lower officials have gone before that committee, you could count on Matt Gaetz taking aim at them in very extreme language and accusing them of unethical and corrupt behavior. And so,
good, great. Great. I want critics of any department to head the department. I want the worst critics of every department to head the department. That'd be great. That'd be great. Then again, like I said, we're coming from two different realities. I guess they can say the same thing about injecting all of these, social engineered admirals and stuff into the military to bring the military to a new level of equality and equity and into the century, the new millennium, whatever the hell it is. But good. I hope that Matt Gaetz only grows angrier with the FBI. That would make me feel great, to be honest. What else do I have? Let's see here. Yeah, that's it. That's it from MSNBC on that end. Now, we're going to have, where is he? Jim Lee coming on in a second, but here's what I want to put up on the screen. This is from, actually, before we get to this, here's a little bit of a list somebody's been putting together. All of the picks so far. First of all, this was a screenshot, so I don't even know who to credit. Trump's Dream Team update so far. Elon and Vivek, Department of Government Efficiency. The fact that they're going with Doge is, then again, I don't care. Make a joke out of the whole thing. I don't give a shit anymore. Tom Homan, Border Czar, Border Bouncer. I like that. Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense. I've seen him make some statements that I like. I've seen him just get, I don't know. I've seen him be not very America first with the whole Third Temple in Israel stuff. I hate listening to that shit. I really do. None of our business. They want to go build temples on one mount or another. Do it and leave us the fuck alone. The same thing with, what's her name? Elise Stefanik. She's going to be our UN ambassador, something like that. And it's just, I don't know. They speak more glowingly about foreign countries than they do their own. John Ratcliffe at CIA. I think that's very cool. Why Kristi Noem DHS? Does anybody know why? Why Kristi Noem? Does she have some? I don't understand. There's some interesting things here. And it's definitely going to make for a lot of fun. That's for sure. But there is one other thing that I'd like to put up on the screen right now, and it's this. RFK Jr., healthfreedomsummit.my. RFK Jr. just started Policies for the People. It's a direct line to Team Trump where Americans can go and propose certain policies that they think would be beneficial to the American people, and then Americans get to vote on it. So you can go to this website where you can start proposing bills and vote on single-issue bills for Congress. Some people are still talking about term limits for senators and representatives, which is not a good fix as you think it is. Ban artificial food dyes, seed oils, things like that. Insurance for holistic health care. Forbid drug commercials on television. I would love that. Now, listen, I'm all for the free market. I would love that. There's no reason why you should be advertising drugs to people. Only healthcare providers should know what medicines are out there to provide to patients whenever they have a condition that warrants its prescription. I would love to see drug commercials just absolutely banned. If I can't watch a Camel Joe commercial, if I can't see the Marlboro Man kicking some ass like a real man on his horse smoking a cigarette anymore, I don't want to see not one antidepressant, anti-anxiety pill again on screen. I don't care about it. But joining us right now is a guy who's already in the mix for some of this stuff, and it's Jim Lee. Jim, climateviewer.com. How the hell you feeling, man?
Pretty good. Want to fight about it?
I do. I absolutely do. So you've been feeling well? How the last couple of days been for you?
Man, stressing about this freaking NOAA law getting passed, but yeah.
What's the NOAA
law? There's this. We have until November 19th for you to get your opinion in on regulations.gov. on including geoengineering in a update to the Weather Modification Reporting Act of 1972. Of course, in the middle of an election, in the middle of two freaking hurricanes, they go and announce that they want to update the laws on reporting weather modification activities to include solar radiation modification. And the window for you getting your voice heard is closing very quickly. The instructions for how to submit your comments are on climateviewer.substack.com. It is pinned at the top. And I'm going to keep it pinned there until at least the 19th. But basically, it comes down to this. There was a company called Make Sunsets. They launched some balloons out of La Ventana down on Baja, California. And those balloons were filled with sulfur. They drifted over Mexico, and Mexico got pretty pissed off about it and banned geoengineering. What do we do in America? We changed the laws to now just say, okay, well, maybe we should include geoengineering in weather modification reporting, but let's change the laws to maybe we need to include a broader spectrum of things to make this happen. What they're tacitly doing is legalizing geoengineering in America. So I'm firmly in the camp of just telling them, how about no, I don't want you to legalize people being able to geoengineer the sky and report it to NOAA, and that's all that's required. How about no? How about you just use your brain and do what Mexico did, ban geoengineering? So it's very important. If you care about this topic, go to climateviewer.substack.com. There'll be an article pinned at the top of the page, says NOAA's legalizing geoengineering. It will give you the backstory, the instructions, and how to submit your comment on regulations.gov, and some examples of what I think you should say, but you say what you want to say. If you can't take back the words you never said.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about this. Make America Healthy Again. The MAHAnow.org. I know that I know you've been nominated for MA, the Make America Healthy Again MAHA. I think it's really interesting, and I hope to high heaven that there is a lot more of a vested interest in going into the private sector and bringing people out of the country who have good ideas that aren't connected to one organization or another, who are just really, they have a lot of natural ingenuity and they have good ideas and they're coming from good places and all that. I know that you got nominated. I saw people like Alana Freeland on this list. It was really, really cool that this is really going to be brought into consideration. How far along the process are you? Is it still just in a voting, or have you been in contact with somebody from the campaign?
I mean, so far nobody's contacted me yet. They're just getting a list of basically it's getting a list of ideas. Make some suggestions. So obviously the voting process is, to see, I guess, how much public support an individual has. International artist by the name of Alexandra actually nominated me. Shout out to Alexandra if you're watching this. And you can, it's on my X profile. That's a photo of me with RFK when he came to my hometown in Sumter, South Carolina, when he was still running for president. And I went there specifically because, although I'm a big Trump fan, I always have been, because he's the human hand grenade and that place needs to be destroyed. But RFK and I align a lot on, just the poisoning of people. So I wanted to go meet the man, measure the man, and hear him in person. So I got to actually meet him. We took a picture together. Not my best photo, I guarantee you that. I was kind of fat in that photo. I had to actually crop it so you couldn't see my belly.
Let me hold on. Let me take a look at you again. Actually, you look like you're in a lot better shape right now.
Oh yeah, man, I've been working out. Plus, the things. This will tell you where I'm at right now. I mean, I'm in smoothie land.
Are those acai berries?
My wife made this one, and I didn't even ask. I stopped asking. I had a ginger shot right afterwards. So
damn
good stuff, bro.
Good for you.
Liquid fire. But yeah, I made a short URL to redirect people because why not? It's much easier. So you can just go to climateviewer.com/MAHA, climateviewer.com/MAHA, and it will take you right there. And you can, it'll redirect. It should. Did it redirect you?
It no longer exists. I'm getting a 404 right now.
That's not cool.
Yeah.
Must test this.
I know.
Did you put a slash on the end of it?
Yeah. MAHA, another slash after MAHA?
Yeah. climateviewer.com/MAHA.
Slash.
Yeah.
I guess I'll put one in right now.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. Okay. So you have to put a second slash in. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Trailing slash. I'll go and I'll fix that after this. I'll do both. Why not? But yeah, that'll kick you straight over to the page where you can, you can vote. You can also leave comments. So, if you're going to comment, please be nice.
Well, then here, hold on. Let's look at this right here. I am sure people will be very nice. Agency or agencies for which nominator feels nominee is best suited. Council on Environmental Quality and Environmental Protection Agency. So let's see here. Is that a place that you would would want to end up, and what policies are you taking with you? Let's just get to that since we don't have all night tonight.
Well, I want to can the chemtrails. I want to ban the geoengineering, and I really want to rein in the weather modification for starters. But obviously, I've been highly dedicated to the topics of pollution, privacy, and propaganda. And because they're so intimately linked, just pollution in general, let's back off of worrying about CO2 and start worrying about the things that matter. What's in the land, what's in the water, what's in the air we breathe. And when I relate all of this to weather modification and geoengineering, obviously, if we're not even taking tests to see what's in the rain, we're not testing what's in the air we're breathing. So that's my area of focus, is on testing how, what pollutants we're actually inhaling, drinking, eating on a daily basis. And I would focus like a laser on that. And then, of course, on this cloud problem we have. I mean, everybody's seen it. Everybody's bitched about it. I've testified at the EPA before. I told them all they were pieces of shit who were worthless and had no purpose. So I would love to be able to say that to their face and actually be able to do something about it. And if there's any way that I could help, Robert, Bobby, bring down the chemtrails and bring down the clouds and, the geoengineering, then I think that if we do not at a national level here in America ban geoengineering, it's an inevitability that it will only get worse. So you can't handle this at a state by state level. It's just the bottom line. And right now, when you combine with what's going on with NOAA and what's going on with this MAHA movement, we have a very unique set of circumstances where we could actually make a difference. So when I noticed that, when Alexandra messaged me, she's like, by the way, I nominated you. I was like, okay, well, if that's if it's meant to be, it's meant to be, and I will gladly go. That would be freaking amazing.
It's interesting that you bring that up because, of course, it comes down to, all right, can this be considered a national defense issue?
It certainly is.
And also, but when you get into public health and everything else like that, I mean, those are things that are really the domain of the states. But even then, if you clear up the skies over Rhode Island, what the hell does that mean? I mean, you could spray something in one state. You can't.
You can't. I know it's if it happens in the neighboring state, it's going to affect you. If they geoengineer in California, it will affect every state in America. If we ban geoengineering as a nation, if our U.S. government passes a law and says that geoengineering is banned and cannot be done, then any foreign actor, means any country in the world that tries to do geoengineering, it would be considered a national security threat and would be subject to possibly getting your ass bombed off the face of the planet, because it would also be an environmental modification convention, NMOD treaty, weather warfare ban violation. It's really that simple. So by us agreeing as a nation, ban it. It's gone, dude. Nobody's going to dare even try it. So that's really where we're at with this thing. I hope to God that, that I get the opportunity. That would be absolutely amazing, because I will bring all the receipts, and then I will have access to stuff I've never had before. And I will nerd out, use my photographic memory, and then go tongue lash the shit out of all these bureaucrats who sat on their thumbs and did nothing about this for decades.
I think a lot of people are praying that people like you are given a chance to actually be a part of the process, the cleanup process, not part of the bureaucracy, the process of making a lot of this go away, and whatever remains to actually be common sense and pro-humanity. And so when I saw things like this, these portals that have opened up to suggest private sector contributors to public policy and everything else, I said, wow, that'd be really great if this is not just lip service and people like you actually get a time a day. And not to put too much on your plate, because I know that first you need to be able to get the call first, but you've been on this show so many times over the last however many years, and I know that when we have talked about cybersecurity, cyber threats, that we've talked about EMPs maybe once or twice, you made comments about how $8 billion would make us EMP proof. And then on top of that, there are other things like EMF, electromagnetic frequency poisoning, and things like that. Like, what would you be able to, let's just speak hypothetically, you're kicking ass over there, and you want to bring up, hey, listen, we have electromagnetic pulse vulnerability here that could be cleaned up with just pennies inside of our couch cushions.
Literally. For less money than we left in fucking Afghanistan, we could secure this nation from total disaster. If an EMP were to go off over America, or we had a large coronal mass ejection solar flare, the Heritage Foundation said that 2/3 of Americans would die within 6 months. That is completely unacceptable. So the priorities of our government are absolutely disgusting. That's an easy answer. Like, you just lay it on the table, say, this is what needs to happen. Let's fix that. On the EMF issue, I would literally, if I were the rule maker, if I were, king for a day at the EPA or wherever, I was able to help out, I would say, what we need to do is really come up with a new standard for what electromagnetic radiation dosage rates are safe. And then impanel a group of individuals to go out and test, in local communities, especially around our schools. Because the bottom line is, when they created these EMF standards, they basically said like 4 watts per, 4 watts per pound, or, anyway, they called it total body absorption rate, or, and it's just not a realistic way to measure electromagnetic radiation. When you have 4 Wi-Fi hotspots, you have 35 laptops all in a room. Every kid has a cell phone also. We have far exceeded what the safe limits of electromagnetic radiation are. Then you get to a downtown, if you're in a large city especially, where they've got a 5G mast, on every other building. So we really don't know how, what the power density is in any given location. We're all overexposed to electromagnetic radiation. I completely did not see you going this way with this, but yeah, this is something I'm passionate about as well. So at the end of the day, that there's all these different ways that we are being poisoned. When I spoke to the Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in Sumter, he harped at least for 20 minutes just on the EMR problem. So he recognizes, like, he wasn't saying, it during his speeches, but he was saying the quiet part out loud, that there is a chronic illness problem, and we're not looking at it from the whole body perspective. And we're definitely not looking at it from an electromagnetic perspective at all. Yeah. Whereas many European nations have recognized this for a very long time.
I'm glad I brought it up. It just started popping up right now because,
bro, I get passionate about this shit. I didn't even think about that. but I'm glad you brought it up.
Well, I mean, if you, and I pray that you get a call. I pray that 50 other people like you get a call. I think more the merrier, and wherever these things can be, these ideas can be implemented and improved upon when all of you put your input in, whatever the hell it is. This is just such an untapped well of ideas coming from very good places. That's what we always talk about when we get together, and what I talk about with so many other people, is that the interests that convene on K Street in Washington, D.C., or anywhere else, the interests that convene, they're never thinking about the good of humanity, ever. So I just know that the good faith that would be, on the table here is the difference maker, just off the in the get-go, and to bring things like EMF and EMP vulnerability as honorable mentions. I mean, just think about all the things that are going against us right now that common sense and just general decency would have already addressed 25 years ago.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, we don't have a Vanguard. We don't have a BlackRock. We don't have a State Street. When have we ever been heard? Like, just the idea that they even have a voting system right now, and they're willing to even look at the possibility of listening to other people's positions and give them a say. I don't think that I'm special, but at the same time, there's a lot of people. There's way more people like me who've devoted their lives to these topics that, given the opportunity, would serve. And I certainly wouldn't be doing it for the money. I would be doing it for my kids. I mean, at the end of the day, this is, like, if they didn't pay me a fucking dime, I would go there and I would do this. I would quit my job and go do it for free. Because at the end of the day, being able to change the world, who would pass that opportunity up?
I believe you. I believe it. And I think that this is where the only group of people, the citizenry, where when you speak in that way, you can hear the authenticity there, because that we have a lot more on the line. We're thinking about our families much more than these big wigs are.
Well, they're not going to care about my two daughters. I know that damn much.
Exactly.
If they had their way, they would turn my daughters into boys and send them off to a re-education university where they'd all become happy little communists. That's not going to happen on my watch. That's why my children are homeschooled. But I can't protect them from what's in the water, what's in the rain, what's in the air, what's in the food. We can try our best. But the bread we eat in America is banned in every other country in the world. You just let that sink in by itself, and you realize we got a lot of problems to fix. And I've just been, right now I've literally been sustained just on the hopium that I've had since, watching Donald Trump get elected at 1:23 a.m. East Coast time. 1, 2, 3. I'll never forget it. 1, 2, 3 in the morning. And between that and all the liberal tears that I've been drinking since then, I've been pretty self-sustained. I think you have too.
Yeah, it's like you ever see that movie Interview with the Vampire?
Yeah.
When Louis he doesn't want to go into he doesn't want to actually feed upon other human beings. He's against it. So he's like scrounging around in the sewers.
For the rats.
He is for the rats, drinking rat's blood just to stay alive. I feel like we finally gave in, and we had a succulent meal.
Just Biden. I mean, seriously, bro. Just grab. They're like, let go of it, man. No. More winning.
More.
More. Damn Bongino. More.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you. So listen, you got to text me, like, at least you obviously you got to tell Kelly and all that stuff, but something happens, you got to text me at least like second or third. I want to know if you get the tap and you get a phone call. That would be so awesome. These are the things I'm looking forward to. The possibilities that would just not be there.
Yeah, well, they can't miss it. I mean, my phone number and my home address are on all of my websites, so it's not like they will have any trouble reaching out to me. But yeah, that phone call will be recorded. I record. I have a recording device on my phone. If that happens, I will record it, and then I will like put it in a box on my wall where I can press it every so often, just as a reminder. But yeah, hope for the best, expect the worst. I will be hopeful about this. I'm not going to get overly excited until, something actually happens. But right now, man, just the winning that's happening. Like, I'm watching these nominations roll in and I'm like, bro, this looks like this might be the most epic thing ever. But you just never can underestimate the will of those who've been entrenched and in power for far too long to try to muck up the game, to destroy the system. So as long as we don't get into a World War III before Trump gets in office, I think we might be okay this time. Unless that guy who, predicted that Trump would get shot in the ear, he also said right after that that the economy would take a crash worse than the Great Depression. So there's that. Hopefully that part of the prophecy doesn't come true, but I'm looking forward to better times, man.
Me too.
Feeling kind of groovy.
Me too. Well, thank you for giving me a little bit of time tonight. I'd love to check in with you soon and do a full segment on something. There's so many things out there, but this was really a lot of good stuff in a little small space of airtime, and I'm glad we got to do it together. And have a good rest of your evening, my friend.
Yeah, definitely. Everybody check it out. climateviewer.com/MAHA/ and then go to climateviewer.substack.com. NOAA legalizing geoengineering. All the instructions are there for you to get your public comments in. The cutoff deadline is November 19th, so you've only got 6 days. Spread the word.
There it is. The Climate Viewer report on Substack, climateviewer.substack.com. NOAA legalizing private geoengineering. Public comments due November 19th. So go and check it out there. And of course, everybody can click through to all this stuff through climateviewer.com, right, Jim?
Yeah, if you go to connect.climate, it's on the front page of climateviewer.com. Okay. My Substack's on there, my Telegram, all my things. Connect.climateviewer.com is where all it's like my link tree.
Okay.
But yeah, man, I appreciate you having me on, and you didn't even know I was going to talk about that NOAA thing.
No, and you didn't know I was going to talk about EMFs.
I didn't. That's how we get down, baby.
That's it. All right. Well, you have yourself a good night down there.
You too, man. I appreciate you.
All right, later, man. There goes Jimlin. Jimlin. It's his first name. You know those Southern names. They're always got an extra spice to them. All right. It's 8:49. I'm not going on another break. I'm just going to open up the lines. So let's hear from you guys. 914-200-0269. 914-200-0269. Hey, let's just try to do a rapid fire. Call in. What's your favorite thing that happened today? A question, a comment, a joke. It doesn't matter to me. Let's spin the wheel, shall we? All right, first one up is Dean. How you doing, Dean?
Frankie, what's cracking, my man?
Nothing much.
Yeah, whole lot of winning, man. I'm feeling, like you said last week, I floated out of bed on Wednesday, just like you did. I was up with you. I wasn't up with you guys for the entire 7 hours last week, but it was a good 5.5, 6. And I got my fat ass up and got in the garbage truck at 4:30 a.m.
And it didn't matter, but, right? It just didn't matter. It could have been.
It didn't. Like I said, like you said, I floated out of bed just like you did. I danced off to downstairs to get dressed for work, and I was, man, just been floating. But man, so Frank, I have a friend of mine who was at my wedding that was just appointed to an officer of the Supreme Court today. And I'm not going to say his name, but he came from an agricultural family, and so that's great. And he's based as shit. So basically, an officer of Supreme Court is a glorified clerk.
Yeah.
You know, each justice has a clerk, that does the research for them and goes. But yeah, but basically that's what that is. So, I'm happy with the appointments. Yeah, things are going pretty good right now, I think, and I guess we're just gonna have to see how that goes. But yeah, that's where I'm at now.
Hey, listen, I'd love to hear the updates from people wherever they are and what's getting them excited and what their attention has been drawn to. And it's always good to hear from you, Dean. And I remember you called in on toward the tail end of election night, right?
I did.
Because you made
I did.
I
called Jay Gulanetto Juanito.
Yes. And then now we got a Juanita that came in the other day. But I remember I remember you making the garbage comment. Thank you for the call. And that's what I said. It doesn't matter. 3 hours of sleep, 45 minutes of sleep after a night like that, you kind of just float around. All right, let's get it. 262, you're on the air. Who's this?
Well, I guess you can call me D-Bag.
D-Bag. Good to have you on, D-Bag.
Love your show. You've been doing such a great job. I've been with you for a long while. And anyways, I just wanted to ask you, what do you find in a clean nose?
What do you find in a clean nose? I don't know.
Fingerprints.
There you go. Yeah. How did the nose get clean? There's only one way, right?
Slap her butt cheeks. Good night, Frank.
Thank you so much. See? He's been watching for a while, but he got a butt cheek slap in. In fact, I had that. I think I had that over here somewhere. Didn't I have it?
Worried about the Jack on a cell phone. Jack, what's going on today?
Hey, Mike, I want to slap your butt cheeks.
Okay, I heard that from Jack on Saturday.
I had that ready for a break tonight if I needed one, but there's no time for breaks. Let's see here. 817, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hey, Frank, I just wanted to make a quick comment about all the recent developments with Trump's cabinet administration.
Okay.
To be quite honest with you, I really haven't seen a whole lot of issues on that front. And, I'm not really that worried or that concerned. What I am concerned with is the Fed. I think the Fed is the ultimate source of power in this country. You're going to see a lot more changes through the Fed. It's going to affect us more from a top-down approach than I think, even from a political standpoint, whatever Trump can do. That's why I would recommend people to look into any type of crypto, central banking, and just understand the history and how all of that works, because that's ultimately what controls each and every single one of us. It's who we work for, the value that we provide, and what money actually is. At the end of the day, that's just ultimately what I think is going to control most of our day-to-day actions than whatever Trump is doing. Now, I'm not saying that it doesn't matter, but what I am saying is that, put it in perspective, I think that in the grand scheme of things, what you showed tonight with just that one little snippet from however many years ago that was of the former Fed chair just kind of talking about no one's above us, it speaks volumes.
It does. And I thank you for bringing that up here, because, again, if you want to talk about lasting, real, fundamental, not just change, but restoration, if what most people say we want to change, perhaps obviously from a technical level, to have something that you don't have right now would be a change. But anybody who understands what we're shooting for from an American standpoint is restoration. And that is that's the biggest point. There's nothing more impactful than the Federal Reserve. And I'll remember. Here, let's listen to it again, because I haven't heard this in years. Alan Greenspan admits the Federal Reserve answers to no one.
What is the proper relationship? What should be the proper relationship between a chairman of the Fed and a president of the United States?
Well, first of all, the Federal Reserve is an independent agency.
An independent agency. Now, when they say that the CIA is an independent agency, they say that in a way intimating that it is independent of party affiliation. It's independent of what it acts independently. It's supposed to be in many ways institutionally unbiased in the way that it applies its trade, which obviously is ridiculous. But what he's talking about here, independent agency, it's a private banking cartel. It is private. Okay? It's private. Now, keep that in mind, because independent agency is right there. It's muddled, but he's just as confident in their supremacy as anybody else. Jerome Powell as well. Jerome Powell essentially said, "No, I'm not leaving. Donald Trump wants me gone. That's good on him. What is he? He's only the president of the United States. I'm the chairman of the Federal Reserve Bank."
And that means basically that there is no other agency of government which can overrule actions that we take. So long as that is in place and there is no evidence that the administration or the Congress or anybody else is requesting that we do things other than what we think is the appropriate thing, then what the relationships are don't frankly matter. And I've had very good relationships with presidents.
Yeah, don't really matter. Don't really matter. I remember when Occupy Wall Street popped up in 2010 or 2011, and it was going from it was like the precursor to Antifa and Black Lives Matter. Occupy Wall Street was just useless. They got a little bit. They started getting violent in places like Oakland and stuff like that. But in New York, it really just materialized to a bunch of smelly, hippie commies who were living in tents in Zuccotti Park in Manhattan. And when we heard about this, we were like, okay, let's just go down there and start interviewing people. We had a great day. And we filmed a lot of stuff down there, and I can't find any of it. Anyway, I'm milling around with my buddy. We had a couple of us down there. I had my microphone and whatever, and we're just talking to people. And I'm looking all over the place for somebody who was going to talk about the Federal Reserve. I only found one person. I went down there thinking, Occupy Wall Street. They have all this, flowery language about bucking the system and liberating people from bad banking practices and all that stuff. I'm thinking to myself, damn, this is going to be incredible. I went down there and it's all people talking about student loan forgiveness and all the equity narratives that have now made it all the way up the chain of command in Congress, and it's being spoken about ad nauseum by people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and all of her, sorority sisters and shit. That's all they're talking about. There was one little group of people from the Zeitgeist movement. There was one guy, his name was Jason. We were friends for years afterwards. I actually lost touch with him after I left Facebook. It's the only person that we became friends. One guy standing there and the Fed talking directly about the Federal Reserve and all that stuff. I got to talk to him, and there was another kid. It's some 15-year-old kid. He was a young kid. Two people out of the whole thing talking about the Federal Reserve. That's when I realized that, okay, whatever Occupy Wall Street is, it is not what it seems. It seems to be speaking truth to power, but really it's just about transforming power into something even more invasive. And it ignores real problems. And then, of course, they turned that into essentially Black Lives Matter, which was Occupy Wall Street with a racial twist to it that couldn't just be brushed off like so many people brushed off Occupy Wall Street. It's like, get the hell away from my front porch, you filthy hippie. So it was it's crazy. It's crazy to see, but I'm glad that this is coming up. The Federal Reserve is a real issue. Real issue. So let me just get to my super chats, and we're going to be away for the night. Here we go. Aunt Nancy. It's been a long time since I heard from Aunt Nancy out there. Happy to be catching the show again. I've missed you. It's good to have you back, Nance. Carly Tebbs says, hey, Frank, if the Fed and or the IRS was abolished, what do you suppose would happen to our dollar? Well, we should go into that. We should go into, how money is coined, how the Treasury coin all that. I mean, it's all right there in our Constitution. It's actually very easy. Now, the real question is, I would need somebody to explain to me what happens to tens of trillions of dollars of fiscal operating debt and hundreds of trillions of dollars of unfunded liabilities. That is stuff that we haven't paid for yet. That's why when I hear Donald Trump saying we're going to pay down the national debt, I'm like, well, that's bold, because I wrote that off a long time ago. Now, obviously, that can't happen unless you do major house cleaning and you get rid of so much of the bureaucracy, and you do get yourself into a position where some tariffs would be able to fund everything and you can get rid of the income tax. But I don't know what that looks like. I don't know. I got to go through my Rolodex and see if somebody can come on and talk to me about it. But I know what abolishing the Fed and the IRS would happen to the dollars in my bank. That's all I care about. And I'm sure that's all you guys care about too. And it's all we were supposed to care about. Because if we're doing well for ourselves, then that means we're doing well for our communities. That means that we're able to give more charitably. You think about how we are taxed into the poorhouse and nobody comes close to our charitable givings. We're very charitable people. And we got to get back to this again. Thank you guys for that over there on, quite frankly, superchat.com. Jay Semo says, watched Frank on SGT. This is on Rumble. I watched Frank on SGT today, last night's show, this afternoon, and now the trifecta. Oh, I'm glad you liked it, Jay. It was a great time with Sean. It was great to be with him, feeling so bubbly and full of, the welling hope of, the bubbling well, I should say, the bubbling well of hope. Anything's possible. Anything's possible. You just got to let it play out. Hey, would you blow me? Says, in case I'm not around in the future, Trump will be elected as president for life in 2028. Pre-1871, there was no term limits on the president. Well, it was the 20th century is when the term limits came in for the president. It wasn't until after FDR. So I don't know why we're going back to 1871 with this. Let's see. I thought there was one more. Where the hell was it? Oh, here you go. Untitled 82 says, all these deep state losers better call Saul. Yeah, better call him. Call Jimmy. Article 2, Section 8 of the Constitution says, hey, would you blow me? Says, only gold and silver are money. The Federal Reserve note is not the U.S. dollar. No, it's an IOU. It's an IOU, which I guess is fine if it's redeemable in gold and silver. I mean, we can keep fiat into the mix as far as currency goes, but money is the actual store of value. And the dollar that I have in my pocket right now is not money. That's that. So see where that goes. Okay, Robert Starnes, this is on on pilled.net. I think we set a pilled.net viewership record last night, or we got close. There was great viewership all over the place, but even on Pilled, it was great. Boys Blanc, thank you. Porpoiseful, thank you. Sean Joe gifted a 3-month bronze tier subscription, and Willie Fixit took it. Thank you, Mr. Pete. The Sentinel says, fire all the people enforcing Joe and Alexandro Mayorkas, or Alexandro Mayorkas directives on the border. Fire them and imprison them, please. I heard the comments from the woman at FEMA who was giving the directives to avoid all the Trump houses. She needs to be put in jail immediately and left there. Let's see here. Doug Simmy, C. Blanche, Swickley, thank you. Mr. Pete again, and Stephen and Lori. Great show. Thanks, Frank. Thank you, Stephen and Lori. I'm going to be releasing that scratching over there, and into the night I go. I can't wait to see you guys and gals tomorrow. It's going to be a good evening. Timothy Alberino will be on. And what I brought up with Jeff Harmon tonight about disclosure, that's going to be a main topic tomorrow with Timothy Alberino. And if you have anything else that you want to hear brought up on that show, please email me So it's Thursday night. Definitely want to do something a little bit more, off the deep end into the goodness of the universe. Let's just do it. Let's do it. Email me any suggestions. Hit me up on the Gilded or something like that, and we will. I'll see you then. Thank you, guys and gals, and until tomorrow. Good night. And become a Polaroid sponsor. And also go to the forum on quitefrankly.tv and please add to the Christmas card thread so you can be part of the newsletter. That's all I care about. And what's the after hours tonight? Hold on. What's on the after hours tonight? The Hidden Passage, Ley Lines, Energy Grid, and Earth Mysteries. That's starting right now on quitefrankly.tv. Go on over there. David Icke, Who Built the Moon, from 2010. Remember, it is Rabbit Hole Wednesday. Art Bell with David Darling, Asteroids and the Cosmos. So go to quitefrankly.tv and enjoy your late night with us. I'll see you in that cozy little chat room powered by Pilled. Good night.
I'll catch you on the flip side.